My first contact with Ed was in 1968, 51 years ago. I had recently joined the Educational Policy Research Center at Syracuse, which is one of two EPRCs funded by the U.S. Office of Education, with the delicious mission to think about the future and its implications for education. Ed mailed me a hand-typed 5x8 note asking me to join the society, and I did. In 1970, I published my first article in The Futurist, which is the basic long-term multifold trend in education, which is a takeoff from Herman Kahn's BLT-MT, and this is all the liberal enthusiasms of the time, few of which were realized. In 1976, I self-published Societal Directions and Alternatives, which rounded up some 900 books, which pretty much described what I now call the future's vogue at the time in the 1960s and 1970s. After that, I had to do something else, so I proposed to Ed in 1978 that I start a monthly newsletter in the society, and it was one of the few relative times when the society was relatively flush with cash. So Ed said yes, and Future Survey was initiated in 1979 as sort of a skunk works, because I have lived all the time in upstate New York. And I greatly appreciate Ed for allowing this to happen, for giving me complete freedom to do what I wanted with Future Survey. And I also want to commend Lane Jennings, who was my editor for 30 years on Future Survey, and we got along great, and for Jeff Cornish, who sent me a check every month, and that, of course, made things work. I'd like to say three things about Ed. First, he was a journalist. He had extensive journalistic experience with UPI and with the National Geographic, and his father was a journalist, so it was genetic, I guess. He also had a distinctive formative experience when he's growing up in New York City, when at the age of 11 in 1939, he attended the World's Fair more than once, and this had a profound influence on him. But it's the journalistic background of trying to be fair-minded and look at different sides that I think made a difference for the society. The second thing I'd like to say is that many people may credit Ed for creating the so-called futures movement. But there are many well-known, respected, bold, and broad people who were publishing futures books before 1968. There's Peter Drucker, Daniel Bell, Robert Heilbronner, Harrison Brown, Kenneth Boulding, Marshall McLuhan, John Gardner, who later served on the board, and so forth, and notably all men. The movement was already underway, but Ed created a hub and a home for many, both with the World Future Society conferences, which began in 1971, and the publications, and of course, Jeff's bookstore. Conversely, the slow decline of WFS membership, starting around 1980, I think was largely due to cultural factors rather than management. Finally, a few of us can say a few words here, but they do not do justice to Ed, his family, the society, and this larger futures vogue that went on in the 60s and 70s, where there's just an outpouring of futures books. So I hope that some sort of historian will step forward and be recruited to undertake this task. I'll be glad to help, as I'm sure many appreciative old-timers in this room today. Thank you.